Tiki and I are back out in the garage, and we have an interesting project to do. It's a little aggravating for me. You know, this project kind of went sideways on me kind of quick. So my plan is I have a 2004 Dodge Dakota, which I've done a couple videos on recently. I'm going to do some more because I have a pretty interesting project on putting bigger wheels and tires on my truck. Problem is, Dakotas are underrepresented in the aftermarket community. They always have been. Dodge in general was that era underrepresented in the aftermarket community. So if you have a crazy Beamer, or if you have a a Ford or a Chevy or whatever, there's always somebody willing to make aftermarket parts for them. Not so much with Dodge. So what I did was I ordered a set of torsion bar keys to raise the torsion bars up, blocks for the rear to raise the rear of the truck up, and it's always had a funny rake to it, so I can fit 33-inch tires underneath in my truck. So in the process of doing it, now the truck has 85,000 miles on it, but it is also over 12 years old. It's a 2004. So the suspension components are starting to just dry rot, basically. I don't have the old ones out, but there's a reason for that. Let me put you down, baby. I didn't take the old ones out because I bought brand new loaded control arms from an aftermarket supplier. I don't know who makes these. Probably Dorman or somebody, or Moog. I'm not sure. I got them from Detroit Axle. They look like they're the right ones. I mean, there's not a whole lot to them. So what I also am planning on doing is upgrading the existing rubber vulcanized upper control arm bushings. My plan was to install aftermarket urethane bushings. The problem is, let me hold this back up. These are two different sizes. Now I spoke with the actual manufacturer of this part, and they were very nice. I have nothing bad to say about them. I've been in the business, well, I was in the business for pretty much my entire life. And one of the things I learned a long time ago is chances of things, aftermarket parts, fitting properly 100% of the time is always rare. And this is an interesting case of that. This bushing is 40 thousandths undersized. This is not supposed to fall into this hole like this. Now, like I said, I called the manufacturer of this aftermarket part, and he said that that's the only one they make. They test fitted it on a bunch of different vehicles. I believe him. I also believe that some point in the Dodge production run, there's a very distinct possibility that they changed the internal dimension of this hole to meet something from another manufacturer. I measured a 2002 Dodge, exact same truck as mine, except it's a 2002, and these fit the 2002. They do not fit the 2004. Who knows? Maybe they changed suppliers or something. So we need to make these holes a little bit smaller to accommodate the bushings. Well, the other question is, well, why don't you get the right bushings? The only people that make these are the company that I ordered them from. Nobody else makes them. Really? Really? She's mad because I put her down. So, yeah, I'm kind of stuck. And I have the most peculiar. If I was just swapping these out with the ones that were in there, it would be fine, because these are the same. All the dimensions are the same, except the dimension for this hole here. So we're going to make this hole, I'm going to make this hole smaller, and I'm going to do it with heat. I'm going to clean the inside of the hole out so it's nice and clean. It might clean the outside of the hole out too. And then I'm going to take my TIG welder and I'm going to run a bead along the inside of this hole. Theoretically, physics, that hole is going to shrink because this is a pressed hole. Okay, so this hole is actually punched through. It's not a machined hole. I mean, it is machined, but it's a pressed hole. It's not a finished machine fit. These are press fit in. And you can't push these in by hand, whereas these just fall in the hole. Okay, so I'm gonna whip out the TIG welder. I'm gonna clean these up, and I'm gonna make that hole smaller. Hopefully, I mean, because it's almost fits. The difference is 40 thousandths. So these come as two pieces. There's three pieces actually. There's the sleeve, which we've been fighting with. Okay, the sleeve. The actual bushing itself, which replaces this, and then this inner sleeve, which rides on this here. Everything I've read says you've got to grease them heavily. They give you special grease, which I'm going to put on right now. I'm actually going to put gloves on too, because this stuff is like dog shit. It gets a little bit, goes all over the place. Okay, I forgot to actually turn the camera back on while I did this, but I have another one to do, so I can go from there. Now, what I ended up having to do was to drive these bolts out. These bolts are drove out, but I had to put this back in before I could actually press the bearing races in, or whatever you want to call them, the sleeves they're called. Chaos. And it worked. They went in, and they ain't moving. I had to use an incredible amount of force to get them into place. So hopefully, when I go put the bushings in, when I go to put the bushings in, they'll all slide together. You have to grease all this stuff. Actually, I didn't grease them the first time. I got to drive them apart and re-grease them. Oh, I sprayed a little paint on them too, to try to keep them from rusting. I actually bought really good paint to do these with, and I decided against it. It's just not worth it. It's not a show truck. I mean, I don't want it to look like crap, but I'm also not going to lose any sleep over it. This truck drives on the beach, so no matter what I do, eventually it's going to get screwed up. So we're going to put a little, actually going to put a lot of grease on it. I've never actually, this grease is pretty cool. It's really crazy sticky. They charge you for it too, which I thought was, well, they don't, it came as part of the kit, but it was like $5 extra. Supposedly over a certain amount of time, or over a certain period of time, you're supposed to take these back apart and re-grease them, because there's no grease fittings in any of this stuff. I don't plan on ever doing it again, but if it squeaks bad, which apparently urethane bushings are known for, I may end up having to do that. So we've greased it up. I'm going to stick that in there like that, that in there like that, and then that. Like that. Okay, so I'm just going to put that in there to hold it for the time being, and then I'm going to flip it around, grab the other one, hit a good one. Yeah, so anywhere that there's urethane to metal contact is supposed to get this grease. And like I said, I didn't totally do that the first time on the first set of bushings, which means I'm going to have to drive them apart. It's just no big deal. They're just sitting here on the bench, so they'll come apart with no problem. I wish I'd have read that before I put them together, because I actually had to do the lowers also. I had to take them back apart. Now the lowers popped right together. The lowers were not a problem at all. The uppers, that was a little bit of a problem. He said it was a little disheartening, but quite frankly, you know, I cannot stress it enough. I've been doing this for my whole life, and a grumpy old man told me once that if you want to build custom cars, you're gonna have to do custom work. Yeah, I'm gonna have to put the bolts on these and run it together that way. Almost broke my neck. I'm just going to put this in the vise real quick to keep it from spinning as easily. Once it got a little bit of tension on it, it decided to spin. So it gets these washers, which I'm going to grease the shit out of. That goes there, that goes there. And then probably what I'm going to end up doing is staking these. You don't want that falling apart when you're driving down the road. Oh, well, that's the end of that. That bottomed out. That one needs to go down better for sure. This one's about right. Now these sleeves got a little bent, and that's actually kind of normal. I'm going to call that done for the time being. I really wish I could get that bushing to go down a little bit more. Ah, perfect. That's what I wanted to see. Okay. So basically I got the flange to push down in on there, and that popped out of the bottom. We're going to do the same thing with this side right here. Alright, so now we have, those are flat, those are flush, that's pretty flush. And to be honest, it kind of looks very much like the one that was the factory one. You can see on this factory one here that that actually moves on this one. These are tight, so hopefully that won't cause a problem, and actually it'll be just the opposite, and it'll make it nice and tight. You know, part of this project is tightening up a kind of a loosey-goosey front end. I actually bought nuts for these. I'm going to put some nuts on there. I'll put nuts on it. Just do it this way. Yeah, I'm going to put a nut on there. Even though I'm using a brass hammer, I'm going to put some nuts on there. I probably should have pressed those out, but that works. Alright, well, I'm going to fiddle with this. I'm going to press these out. I may have to take it to the shop to press them out. Okay, so I'm back here. We're going to start again. So here's the hole. It's prepped, ready for the weld. Now, this is the new bushing sleeve, and you can see it just drops right in the hole. That's no good. That's no good. So what I'm going to do is, to shrink the hole, I'm going to put a line of weld here. I'm just not even going to use filler. I'm just going to use the TIG torch itself to heat the metal in a real tight spot right there, right here, right here, and right here. And then I'm going to try this again. And I'm going to keep doing that until I can't fit this in the hole anymore with just finger pressure, because this is the factory one, and the factory one doesn't go in at all. I mean, that's a real press fit. I'm going to tighten that place up. That's a real press fit, not like this, which is loosey-goosey. So we'll set the welder up and go from there. Okay, so I flip the camera and I get a better angle on it. Note to self: make sure you check the settings on your TIG welder before you try to weld with it. I was welding. I had it set up for stick welding, which is the opposite of what I wanted to do for TIG welding, and I burned the end off my my TIG tungsten, so I had to redo all that. So here's I think it's a little bit better example of what's going on here, or at least a better angle of what's going on. So, like I said, I'm going to try to put it, just run a bead here of just to realign the molecules of the steel. One there, one here, and one here. If that doesn't work, I'm going to try one around the whole end side. I'm a little nervous about doing that, but at this point I'm screwed unless I want to put the original factory rubber bushings back in, and that just completely negates the whole idea of putting urethane bushings in. It's like taking a shower and not using soap. So here goes nothing. It's just a little test there. Not getting any gas. That would be why it's fucking up like that. Now that was just a test of concept. Look at that. Problem is, it didn't do what I wanted it to do. Fudge. Alright, now you can see here, that's when my gas stopped flowing for some reason. So I got to clean all this back up. I got to clean out the hole with a file, or actually I could use a Dremel. Try it again. Because nothing ever works right the first time for me. Okay, so it actually kind of worked. I knew it would. It's basic physics. What I forgot to mention was that part of making this work, part of the shrinking project is what I'm doing here, is that the material has to be quenched. So when it's hot, you quench it, and then it'll go and then shrink itself into place. Theoretically. So this side, and I can see through here, is pretty close, this edge. But what I'm going to do now is I flip the piece over, and it's not showing up on video, okay. So I flip the piece over and I put that back in there. And always remember to put your ground on, kids, or else it makes funny noises. Should probably put gloves on too, because I burned myself twice already. Brand new pair of TIG welding gloves to ruin, because I inevitably ruin them. These are Harbor Freight. Ironically, if I over shrink them, I'd actually have them, I'd rather them be a little small, because I can always make the hole a little bit bigger. Making holes smaller is obviously a pain in the ass. But then again too, that's why I like metal as opposed to wood. If I got something too short with metal, I can always add a little extra on. With wood, that turns into kindling. I'm going to do the same thing one more time. And then take it, dress it real quick with a file on the inside to make sure I can get any of the burrs off. I think that was the way to go. Problem is I can see daylight around it. I think I'm going to get a brush and brush around that a little bit on the outside just to... We got a little bit of a booger on that. Little bit of a booger there, which you didn't really want. Alright, I'm gonna shut the camera off. I'm gonna let this cool down a little bit. I have a little bit of hand filing to do, but it worked. It didn't shrink it as nicely as I wanted it to, but you know, it is what it is. They definitely are a press fit now.